Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shawn Smallwood. I'm here in ENT 610 with Zane Breeding for our student interviews. Zane, we had our previous class together. That for me, that was my first entrepreneurship course. I believe it was your second, wasn't it?
Actually, that would be my third or fourth. So yeah, I'm a couple terms into the entrepreneurship program. So that would have been my third course. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
nice. Can you give me a little bit of background about yourself? I know I was looking at your blog, and that was for your own personal business, but I believe you also work for a company as well.
I do. Yeah, I have. I'm a little bit of a lifelong learner as well. So to kind of back up on my background a little bit, I came back to Western Carolina a couple years ago, actually, to finish an additional bachelor's degree and undergrad degree in business. I had been working in the professional corporate field for years. I have some previous degrees as well, and then that led into probably a similar story to yourself, kind of enjoying the challenge and wanting to extend that into the master's program. But career wise, I've been working in corporate America for the last 12 years or so in an executive role. I lead client facing teams. That's whether that's been traditional sales, account management, customer success. I've kind of had a hand in all of those, led marketing teams, have worked in both the consumer goods and agriculture industries, kind of across the board. So my background is a little bit mixed, but I'm excited to be in this program. Excited to continue to challenge myself amongst like-minded folks, just like you.
Oh, for sure. I definitely. I know you have quite the writing skill, and you highlighted that during our introduction post for this class. And I always like to go through for your professional writing and read it. As I said, I'm like, I think I'm a good writer, and then I started using Grammarly, and I was like, oh well. I was like, maybe not. So I'm always definitely looking at that and just your play on words and how you phrase everything. If I recall from our last course, you said you primarily focus on customer experiences. Is that correct?
I do, and thank you for the writing piece too. Yeah, that's always been a passion of mine, honestly. And I think I even mentioned in our intro post, I've seen in my career the impact that professional writing can have kind of across the board. So it's been a continued learning exercise for me. But career wise, you're exactly right. Um, we hear a lot about customer service, customer experience, so on and so forth, and I'm very passionate about what is a more modern view of customer experience, which means essentially we want to put the customer first in everything we do at every single stop in the journey with them. So that means from prospecting that customer to onboarding that customer to having them adopt our products and or services, all the way to the end of that journey. And the goal for us in my existing business, and I think for any entrepreneur or any leader who deals directly with customers, is to build customer advocates. And if you focus on that entire experience, the results typically are, if you do a good job, you can build customer advocates.
I like that. That's a great answer. And I think it kind of dives in a little bit more looking at the financial side of thing, that customer acquisition cost. When you go into, you think about all of the work that it takes just to get one customer on. And once you get them, and then you need to get them to come back. So how do you plan that? And how do you look at the customer acquisition cost from a business and from a financial standpoint?
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, we're so heavily focused on customer retention metrics. And the reason is, and there are various different studies on this, but a lot of information, both in our business and kind of across general verticals, will share that, anywhere from a 5 to 7% boost in customer retention can account for upwards of 50%
Oh, wow.
revenue growth. So
Wow.
it's a massive impact. And that just goes to show you that, selling and expansion of revenue to existing customers and organic growth is inherently easier than new logo acquisition. And frankly, it's a whole heck of a lot cheaper. So for us, we're constantly monitoring churn rates, right? We know the data of what happens, the cost of acquisition for customers that churn. Number one, we closely monitor that. We closely monitor cost of acquisition for net new logos, which, the sales close cycle on those for our business approaches almost a year and a half, 2 years. So you
Oh,
can
wow.
imagine if it takes us a year and a half or 2 years to close a customer, the amount and the expense that we put into that. So
Oh,
um,
exactly.
yeah, again, retention for us is, top of the list. And, we've been lucky in that sense. Industry average is a little bit over 5-6%. And over the past year and a half, we've been able to reduce that churn rate down to a little bit less than 3%, which has been a
That's
massive,
amazing.
yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost 50% less than what the average is. So yes, that is awesome. And back to customer service a little bit. What would you say when a customer calls in if they have an issue? What would you say they're actually looking for outside of of resolution? A resolution is a given, but what are they really looking for when they call in with a concern or a complaint?
Yeah, yeah, and you and I talked previously a little bit about emotional intelligence, and I think this is where it comes into play for any professional, whether we're customer facing or whether we represent any vertical. But oftentimes it's simply being heard. There's a challenge. There's a challenge that they've encountered. They need assistance, but more than anything, they want to feel heard. And the truth of it is, we all want to feel heard, right? So, as professionals, and certainly when we're in a customer facing role, our job is to always use empathy, to empathize with the customer, to practice emotional intelligence, acknowledge their challenge, acknowledge their issue. And then it's about trying to provide value. Value is number two. How do we help them overcome that? If we can't help them overcome that, then how do we move them past, that particular issue? But in my own experience, I've found the most success typically comes with acknowledgement, and truly just listening.
I couldn't agree with you more. I find that's me personally when I find myself in situations like that, and you find yourself speaking to somebody who is dismissive or doesn't want to help, and you're like, I'm just trying to speak my part
Right.
and we can move forward. And if you simply acknowledge, I've had situations before where if it would have been a simple, I'm sorry, this was a mistake. Okay, it's done. We can move on. We're friends again.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
it hasn't happened, and companies lose customers over simple things like that for not being able to do a simple acknowledgement.
Constantly. It,
So
it happens more than folks care to realize. It is almost a constant thing where lack of acknowledgement and lack of emotional intelligence, or regulation, and lack of accountability. I mean, quite frankly, as you just mentioned, that those things can be customer killers. So you've got a great point.
what would be your top piece of advice for somebody who was looking to get into the sales or customer experience side of business?
Yeah, that's a good question. I get that one quite a bit. And I think it kind of varies, depending on the specific vertical. But the two sort of common things that I would share, and what I've seen in my own career success, is I've shared this with you. I'm a lifelong learner. Number one, I want to learn everything there is to do, everything there is to know about my existing business. I want to know everything there is to know about customers that I may represent. I want to understand how their business works. I want to understand who their stakeholders are. I want to understand what their problems, challenges, issues. I want to understand what their strategy is. And I think for folks getting into kind of sales customer experience, it's very, very important that you understand that nobody's going to give you those things, right? You can start in an organization tomorrow,
Yep.
and you're going to get a couple pieces of a Word document that points you in the right direction. And then it's up to you. So your own work ethic and drive and motivation to be successful is going to be critical, certainly in a results-oriented business, like sales, customer experience, account management, things of that nature.
I love that. You have to have your own self-drive and your own entrepreneurial mindset, or that persistence that is needed regardless of what you are doing to be successful inside or outside of an organization. Excellent, excellent advice.
Yep.
I think we've pretty much covered everything that we need to cover right now, unless you have any closing thoughts that you would like to add.
No, I appreciate your time. Some great questions. Hopefully, I've talked before. I'm certainly passionate about these things. So I hope I didn't give you long-winded answers, but
No, I appreciate it. You pointed out a lot of key information, and mainly, being a lifelong learner, our brains need to remain malleable. If we get set in our ways and we refuse to move forward, that's where I think folks have a hiccup. Is the refusal to change that seems to set in as folks get older, and to counteract those natural thoughts that we just want to. Well, this works, so why change it? Type of mindset, and it's like, no, we always need to have things should always be changing. If they're not changing, then nothing is moving forward.
yeah, no, I agree. Every day is a chance to learn something new. 100%.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much for your time and for your interview.
All right. Thank you, Shawn.